Okay, so we've got the meeting called to order. And roll call, let the record reflect that we have Khulud Pearson, Naveed Ferdanish, Deborah Logan, Jeff Briltz, and Holly Jacobs on the phone. And with that, we're going to take any public comments, and I don't believe there's any other members of the public on the Zoom call. There are no members of the public here in the room. So we'll go ahead and adjourn to closed session.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording now.
Hey, good evening and welcome. This is the Templeton Community Service District Board of Directors meeting. Today is Tuesday, December 6th, 2022. May we have a roll call, please?
Directors Ferdanish,
Here.
Giardini is absent, Logan,
Here.
Pearson, here, and Peterson.
Here.
Okay, and with that, please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And let's see, would any board member like to change the order of business this evening? Okay, let me just also say, the board did meet prior to this meeting in closed session, and there's no reportable action to disclose at this time. And with that, we have some special reports and presentations. I'm going to let Commander Manueli present his update to the board first. And Commander Manueli is with the Sheriff's Department, if you can't see his uniform.
And he's not leaving anywhere.
Top secret. Good evening, Michael Manueli, Commander, Sheriff's North Station, with the report for November. The station received 2,051 calls for service compared to last year, 1,527. That's a very significant increase of approximately 34%. From those calls for service, Templeton accounted for 337 calls for service. Last year, 375, a drop of about 10%. For comparison, San Miguel had 160 calls for service. From those calls for service, the station generated 238 reports compared to last year, 193, a 23% increase. Templeton accounted for 74 reports compared to last year. We had 67, a 10% increase. For comparison, San Miguel had 24. Breaking those calls for service down into specific categories: assault and battery, there were 3 calls for service generating 2 reports. We had a landlord-tenant dispute which turned physical, and we also had a domestic violence. Disturbances, there were 7 calls for service generating 1 report. We had an acquaintance get into a dispute, and one of them used an umbrella to try to strike the other person. Burglaries, there were 4 calls for service generating 3 reports. We had locks cut and tools valued at $3,000 to $4,000 stolen. We had locks broken on a maintenance shed and a portable air compressor stolen. We also had vehicle windows smashed and items stolen out of that vehicle. Thefts, there were 8 theft calls for service generating 6 reports. We had a wallet taken from a shopping basket while that person was shopping in one of our local markets. It's becoming more common. I've reported this to you before, but we ask that people protect their items while they're in the store. They just turn around, they help somebody with food on the shelves, and lo and behold, their wallet gets stolen. Power tools were stolen from a vehicle. We had expensive eyeglasses stolen from a vehicle. And then one of our construction sites was burglarized and tools taken. Vandalism, we had 9 reported calls for service generating 4 report. We had some graffiti here in town. We had damage to a vending machine. We had locks cut on a location, and the electrical box inside that location was damaged. And then we had a subject get into a dispute with another, I believe it was another vehicle driver, and that subject kicked the car door. Trespassing, 9 calls for service, generating 1 report. We had a subject walk onto a property, and then when he was observed there, he panicked and jumped the fence into a storage yard next door. Phone scams, there were 2 calls for service, neither was generating a report, but worth noting. Again, the sheriff's office or no law enforcement officers will call you on the phone and try to get your personal information from you. In this case, somebody was calling, representing themselves to be somebody from the sheriff's office. It's not gonna happen. If it does happen, I encourage you to say, I'll call you right back, look up the phone number in the phone book, dial that phone number and say, hey, is this deputy looking for him? In another case, someone was calling, impersonating the insurance company, trying to get information. I also received one this past month, a text message saying, hey, your credit card's been cut. Turned my credit card over, called the number. Hey, you trying to reach me? Nope. Let's see, suspicious circumstances, no reports were generated. There were 15 of those calls for service. And then we've talked about the thefts, and with the holiday season is a great opportunity for thieves. There are packages left on the front porch. There are packages left in the cars, and there are all kinds of valuable things left in houses, and people are out doing celebrations for the holidays, or they're out of town for the holidays, and it's a great opportunity. Keep an eye on your neighbors, keep an eye on your property, and you know, protect them as best we can. And that's my report for this morning.
Thank you very much. With that, any questions from members of the board?
I have a question.
Yes.
Thank you for your report. Initially, you mentioned that the number of calls have gone up significantly. Is there a particular reason for that? Is it a trend that you're starting to see? And also, do you have enough staff to cover the extra calls?
Yes, so yes, it is a trend. I've tracked those trends for quite a while, particularly through the pandemic. And that's made it very difficult to predict where they are going and why they are going, because we were trending down some. Pandemic hit, it just drastically dropped, it popped up, and then it's been just kind of wavering along, but it appears to be climbing from that point up. I can't explain why. Historically, it has always been based on economics, employment numbers, inflation, and economics. When it gets harder for people to live, more people resort to criminal activity. And that's been a trend. We do have good numbers. We are in the process of hiring additional personnel. We have some vacancies that we need to fill. I would always appreciate more personnel. I'm sure that the people out there taking the reports day in and day out would like more personnel, but we're doing fairly well, and we are moving in the right direction of getting more people on board. So I think there are areas we can improve, and the sheriff and his command staff are working to request those from the board of supervisors.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions from board members? With that, I'll open it up to members of the public. If any members of the public have a question for the sheriff. Okay, well, thank you.
Questions about my retirement?
Thank you, Commander Manueli. Have a good evening.
I won't show up with the invitation.
And with that, I'm going to move to the recognition of the investigation class completion. And with us this evening is our fire chief, Tom Peterson, who I think is going to be recognizing Captain Goldblum. And Captain Wall is unable to be here this evening, so perhaps we'll follow up at the next meeting with Captain Wall.
Correct, yeah, I'll see what his availability is, and we'll go from there. Well, thank you, members of the board, and I have the honor tonight to recognize one of our captains who has completed a fairly extensive program, arson investigator. So if I can just give you a brief little rundown on what arson investigators do. I know it sounds kind of self-explanatory, but there might be a little more to it. Fire and arson investigators examine the physical attributes of a fire scene and identify and collect physical evidence from the scene. The evidence is analyzed to help determine the cause of the fire and to determine whether it was accidental or deliberate. What skills need to be, do you need to be an arson investigator? Arson investigators must have natural ability, aptitude, and a desire to do the job. It's tenuous to say the least. As an investigator for 16 years, maybe closer to 20. I can tell you, you have to be very meticulous. You can't jump over any conclusions. You have to be very sequential and chronological about the steps you take. They must possess the ability to recognize physical evidence. This is part of that class that they go through. They must be able to relate evidence to the sequence and interpretation of criminal action before the evidence is altered and or collected in any manner. What are 3 specific tasks that an arson investigator does? Arson and fire investigators have a number of duties. On the scene, they will collect evidence, identify any potential accelerants, and work towards determination and cause of the fire. They will interview witnesses, assist in the identification of offenders. They will do and make any potential arrests if necessary. In the fire code itself, 104.11, fire investigation, the fire code official, which is typically the fire chief of the department, the fire department or other responsible authorities shall have the authority to investigate the cause or origin of circumstances of fire, explosions, or any other hazardous conditions. So we are mandated by the California State Fire Code to actually do the investigations. This is not something that we can relegate to another department, CAL FIRE, or anybody else to do. We are a recognized fire department, so we are responsible for actually doing the cause and determination of those types of things here. 104.11.1, assistance from other agencies. Police and other enforcement agencies shall have the authority to render necessary assistance in the investigation of fires when requested to do so. So we would have to request the assistance from the sheriff's department or investigators to assist us if we have a significant issue. For example, if we had a fire death, we would definitely get the sheriffs involved, and then our investigators would work with them to figure out cause determination and those types of things. Lastly, the authority at fires and other emergencies. The fire chief or other fire department or officer of the fire department is charged at the scene of a fire or other emergency involving the protection of life or property or any part thereof, and shall have the authority to direct such operations as necessary to extinguish or control any fire, perform any rescue operation, investigate the existence of suspected or reported fires, gas leaks, other hazardous conditions or situations, and take any action necessary that is reasonable to perform these duties. It is in the exercise of such power, the fire chief is authorized to prohibit any person, vessel, or vehicle, or thing from approaching the scene. The fire chief or his authorized representative is also allowed to make arrests if they interfere with the investigation of a fire or of an arson investigation. Just to show you, this is the fire investigator task book. Captain Goldblum and Captain Wall have started these. There's a significant amount of items that they will go through. And I will sign them off on a majority of it. And they will work with SLOPIST, San Luis Obispo Fire Investigation Strike Team, which they are now members of, to also investigate other fires in the county. So SLOPIST, and again, this is kind of that mutual aid thing where we can't do anything by ourselves. No department really can in the county. So essentially what we do is we put this team together and we help each other out. Several departments contribute members to that team, and now we'll be able to contribute two. So it is my honor tonight to recognize Captain Goldblum. Come on up, Phil. The fire investigation course is 3 40-hour courses. So it's 3 full weeks. The first one, and I just kind of printed out the course curriculum, is basic fire investigation. It's about 18 pages of course curriculum, but it's a lot more reading and a lot more hands-on learning what to look for, how to look for it, how to preserve it, those types of things than just those 18 pages. Once they look at or figure out what to look for, then they have to figure out evidence and documentation. How do we collect it? How do we document it? And how do we save it for a potential court issue? And then the last item is preparation of legal proceedings. That's the third course that they take. So each one of these courses are very involved. And again, like I say, they're each 40-hour courses. And there's a lot of commitment that goes into the actual fire investigation program. They have a couple more courses that they'll finish up, which is PCA 32 and firearms and control and those types of things. And then they will be able to be full-fledged arson investigators, go out on their own and do the investigations with us. But this is the first step. They are officially investigators at this point in training. And so I want to recognize Captain Goldblum and present him with his investigator badge. Okay. At that point, I can call him out at any time in the morning, night, evening to say, come and figure this out. Sometimes you don't have to. Congratulations.
I'll make it short and sweet. Thank you, Chief Peterson, for allowing me to take the classes. This goes back a long ways when I started a career in law enforcement, then made a switch.
Smart man.
So combining them is nice because I can bring a lot of that training back into it. Going through the classes like, oh yeah, I did that in the police academy. Oh, I did that. So I want to say thank you again for allowing me to take the classes and bringing another asset to Templeton and the surrounding communities.
Thank you. Well, thank you for completing the course because I think it just adds to the depth of skills that we have within the Templeton Fire Department. So it's wonderful to see that we have 2 individuals who have achieved that. So on behalf of the board, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, and with that, we're going to move to our swearing in ceremony. We have a new board member who is now joining us, Lee Harrison. And we have an incumbent, Wayne Peterson, who has been reelected, or I should say appointed, not elected. So we'll be doing the swearing in ceremony. Is that something really cool?
So after I'll say state your name and then you'll say your name and you both can do it at the same time. So I state your name.
Wayne
Peterson.
Peterson.
Do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution
that I will support and defend the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California.
that I take this obligation freely
I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
that I will faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties of which I'm about to enter.
You have to stand up this time, boy.
All right, so it's official now. So welcome to the board. And with that, we'll move to this section of our meeting, which is public comments. And this is where members of the public may address the board on any subject within the jurisdiction of the district that's not on tonight's agenda. However, with compliance with the Brown Act, the board cannot discuss items not on tonight's agenda. But we can direct staff to take up an item and perhaps bring it back to the board at a later date. The board or staff may ask questions for clarity on anything that's presented to the board. So with that, I'll open it up to if any members of the public have comments that they would like to address the board. Okay, hearing and seeing none in the room or on Zoom, we'll move to the consent agenda. And there's 3 items on tonight's consent agenda. The first is the adoption of the, well, you know what, the consent agenda, I'm going to pull item A. Because I'm just thinking it's, well, there's 3 of us, we can do it, never mind. So there's 3 items on the consent agenda. First item is the minutes of the November 15th meeting. And this is for the board to consider adoption of those minutes. The second item is cancellation of the January 3rd board meeting, and this is to consider canceling the January 3rd, 2023 board meeting due to the holidays. And then the third item is the budget amendment, the new rescue tools grants, and the board will consider approving a budget amendment in the amount of $20,000 to line item 61100 supplies, as well as the $20,000 in grant proceeds. So do I have a motion to, I know that Director Pearson will have to abstain from item A. So maybe let's take a vote on approving item A. And I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the November 15th meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the minutes of the November 15th meeting made by myself, Director Logan, and seconded by Director Fardanish. And we have a roll call, please.
Logan,
Aye.
Bardanish,
Aye.
Jardini is absent, Pearson.
She'll abstain since she
And
wasn't.
then Peterson.
Yes.
Okay, so that motion passes 3 with 2, well, 1 abstaining and 1 absent. Okay, and with that, now we'll move to items B and C, the cancellation of the January 3rd board meeting and then the budget amendment. And I'll make a motion to approve both of those items.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion made by Director Logan and seconded by Director Peterson. May we have a roll call, please?
Logan,
Aye.
Peterson,
Yes.
Bardanish,
Aye.
Jardini is absent. Pearson.
Aye.
And then our next, and I apologize, I should have given the public an opportunity to comment on any of those items in the consent agenda and didn't do so before the motion. So Jerry, no comments? Okay. So going to our next item of business is the board reorganization. And this is something that occurs each December according to the board's bylaws. And with that, what I'll be doing is turning it over to our board secretary. Will be, or will it be you, John? Okay, so what'll happen here is that nominations will be made for the board president. Once those nominations are made, we'll then vote in alphabetical order, depending upon the number of nominations. And then that person will assume the board, the position of board president and will conduct the vice president nomination and voting process. You want to add anything to that? Okay, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to the board secretary.
So with that, we'll open up nominations for the office of board president. Do we have any nominations from the board?
I'll make a nomination that Wayne Peterson, or Director Peterson, assume the role of president.
And do we have any others? Okay, nominations are now closed. And I will take a roll call vote for Director Peterson. Director Fardanish.
Aye.
Giardini is absent. Logan.
Aye.
Pearson
Aye.
and Peterson.
Maybe. Aye.
Okay, so with the 4 votes, Director Peterson is elected as board president.
And you start the process for vice president now. No, you do. You're now board president.
I'm just gonna turn it over to them. I mean, okay, so now. I am, just turn it back over to you for the nominations. Do we have any nominations, I guess?
Yeah,
for the
that's,
board
Yes, we
president?
open up the nominations for the office of board vice president. Do we have any nominations?
I'll nominate myself.
Do we have any others? Okay, with that, nominations are now closed. Roll call vote is Director Fardanish.
Aye.
Giardini is absent. Logan.
Aye.
Pearson
Aye.
and Peterson.
Yes,
Okay, and then with the 4 votes, Director Logan is elected vice
okay, before we go on to the next item, I'd just like to thank Director Logan for the last 3 years that she's been up here. I think she's done probably better than any president that I've seen since I've been on the board. And I'm not gonna do any better than she did. I'm probably gonna do a lot worse, so. Anyway, thank you for,
Well, thank you. Thank you.
and I hope this isn't recorded because I don't want this coming back. Anyway, thank you very much.
You're
So
welcome.
I guess the next item on the agenda is the audit report. And we will listen to the presentation by our district auditor, Leaf and Cole. And if appropriate, we'll accept the financial statement. Jeff, do you have anything you wanna?
No, actually, Mike Sizzy from Leaf and Cole is here via Zoom tonight.
Hello, Mike.
How you doing? Good to be with you. Appreciate the opportunity as always. I'm gonna make an attempt here to share my screen. Hopefully I will pick the right screen. And you will now be seeing the lead schedule to my presentation. Can I get confirmation on that? You guys are seeing my screen?
Not yet.
president. No,
Uh-oh.
we did so good earlier.
Yeah. Let's see. How about now?
Yes.
It's 2 clicks, not 1. All right. So as I typically do, I'm going to run through the independent auditors report. It's changed a bit this year. And I'm going to take a little bit of credit for that. Those of you that have been with us for several years, you know that we usually get a great line in there and say, and we turn to the second page before we tell you what you really want to hear, which is the audit opinion. And so they finally took my advice and they moved it to the second paragraph of the report. So happy to take credit for that. So without further ado, I'm going to again run through the independent auditors report, which appears on page 1 of the audit report itself. And so the first paragraph of that report indicates what it was that we actually audited. Well, we audited the district's financial statements, which actually includes 2 sets of statements, and then there's a reconciliation between the 2. The government-wide statements, which are done on a full accrual basis, that's you as an entire entity, includes the statement of net position and the statement of activities. The fund financial statements are broken into governmental funds, which are recorded on a modified accrual basis. And then the proprietary funds, the business type of funds, are accounted for on the accrual basis. And then, of course, the notes that supplement the financial statements themselves. The second paragraph, as I alluded to, is the opinion paragraph, which indicates that the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects, and that they are in conformity with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States, or what you may have heard the acronym GAAP. The next paragraph indicates the auditing standards that we followed. The auditing standards we followed are generally accepted auditing standards in the United States. That paragraph also indicates that we are required to be independent of the district. And furthermore, we believe that the audit evidence obtained is sufficient and appropriate and provides a basis for our audit opinion. The last paragraph, or last set of paragraphs on the first page, indicates what's management's responsibility. And again, it's a little bit different. Some of it's the same, but a little bit different. Management has always been responsible for the preparation and the fair presentation of the financial statements. They've also been responsible for the design, the implementation, and the maintenance of internal controls. New in this year is they state affirmatively that management is required to evaluate whether there are conditions or events that in the aggregate raise substantial doubt about the district's ability to continue as a going concern for at least 12 months after the date of this financial statement. If there were issues, your opinion would be reading very differently and would not have said that they were fairly stated. So if we had concerns about a going concern, those would have been expressed up front. Turning to page 2 is the auditor's responsibilities. Our objective is to obtain reasonable assurance. You've always heard me say that strange term, reasonable assurance, about whether the financial statements are free of material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. Our responsibility is to issue a report that includes our opinion. Again, stressing reasonable assurance. Reasonable assurance is a high level of assurance, but not absolute assurance. And so the risk of detecting a material misstatement is higher from fraud than from error, as fraud may involve collusion, forgery, intentional omissions, misrepresentations, and the override of internal control. We're not saying that we found anything like that. We're just indicating, as I always say, accountants go to great lengths to tell you what we didn't do. So again, we're providing reasonable assurance. In the performing the audit, we exercise professional judgment and professional skepticism. We identify the audit risks and design procedures that are responsive to those risks. As I've told you for years, your audit's a little bit different than everybody else's audit because we tailor our audit specifically to you. We obtain an understanding of internal control in order to design those procedures. We evaluate the accounting policies used and any significant estimates made. And we conclude, much like management was required to, we conclude on the ability to continue, on the district's ability to continue as a going concern. On the third page, we talk about the required supplementary information, and there are quite a bit of selections in your financial statements that include information that is considered required supplementary information. So management's discussion and analysis, which precedes the financial statements, is considered RSI, required supplementary information. And then in the back, we have a budgetary comparison on the general fund. And then we have multiple schedules related to both the miscellaneous plan and the safety plan on the pension side, both our share of the net pension liability and the schedule of contributions to that plan. And then the same thing for our other post-employment benefits, or the acronym OPEB. Again, a schedule on the liability itself and a schedule of the contributions made there too. So that's the independent auditors report. I'm now going to focus on, if you're following along, on pages 6 and 7 inside the management's discussion and analysis are a couple of tables that give you some condensed information, and I'm going to take excerpts from that. But what you should draw from that is that the net position, or what you might think of equity, is that in the governmental funds increased approximately $1.1 million this year. The net position, or again, equity in our proprietary funds, increased $933,000 this year. And that's after the proprietary funds transferred $1.8 million to the governmental funds. And that's a net, there's transfers throughout, but the net effect is that the proprietary funds transferred money to the governmental funds. So again, the net position in the governmental activities, and I'm gonna go to the next slide for this one. So again, this is the current year, this is the prior year to give you some comparison. This is the governmental activities that we talked about, this is the business activities, and this is the total. And so I put together excerpts from both of those slides. And so the net position increased, this is the change, or you might think of that as net income, increased $1.1 million from $6,917,350 from to $8,012,876, and the net position of the proprietary funds increased $933,000 from $32,028,594 to $32,961,466. And again, that's after the proprietary funds transferred 1.8 million out of the business type activities into the governmental activities. And there's a list of all the interfund transfers in footnote 1, which is on page 28 of the financial statements. Overall, our revenues increased in the governmental funds about 88,000, and that results from a return of our program revenues in the Park and Rec Fund, and that was offset by a decrease in our investment earnings. Increased expenses in the governmental funds results from increased salaries and benefits, and again, increased activity in the Park and Rec Fund. Our restricted net assets, and again, this is more on a balance sheet perspective. And so again, this is governmental activities, business type activities, and this year versus last year. So the restricted net assets, which is here, represents facility fees in the governmental fund and a reserve requirement of 1 month's debt service on the State Water Resources Control Board loan in the sewer fund. Our changes in net position decreased from 3.3 million to 2 million. So last year, again, our net income overall, the total was about 3.3 million. This year, it's just about 2 million. As the district recognized about $1 million less in grant funding in the current year and received about 400,000 less in investment income, while our costs increased only less than 1%. Footnote 2 indicates that our cash balances remain consistent at about 21 million. Thus, we have a strong cash position after reducing our non-current liabilities by about $2.6 million. That reduction is attributable to decreases about 2.6 million. Nearly 2.4 million of that reduction is attributable to decreases in our actuarially determined pension and OPEB liabilities. And I want to take a moment to take a sidetrack there. Those of you that have been with me over the past years, you know that I'm not really fond of some of these actuarially determined liabilities because there's great fluctuations in those. And so we had a tremendous reduction this year. And you have to think of this, that it takes them so long to put this information together that it's always a year behind. So what you're seeing in June of 22 is really the impacts of June of 21. And so a lot of the reduction in these two liabilities is attributable to the fact that the investments that they had within the portfolio that are going to subsidize funding these liabilities did really, really well in 2021. And so I'm expecting that you're going to see the inverse of this next year when this year's stock market gets flowed through these actuarial calculations. So don't be surprised. Again, I think your liabilities there are artificially reduced. And next year, I think they're going to be artificially increased as well. Our total assets increased about $1.6 million this year. And that results principally from the implementation of GASB 87 regarding leases. We were required to implement this particular pronouncement, which caused us to record a receivable for the present value of all of our future cell site lease revenues. And then there's a corresponding deferred inflow. So it had virtually no impact on net income, but it did gross up the balance sheet quite a bit. And again, that's the net present value of all of those future cash flows. they really designed this pronouncement to capture lease liabilities for people that are lessees, not lessors. But because they had to have the lessees pick it up, they had to have a corresponding pronouncement related to the lessors. And so this was kind of their solution to that. Total liabilities decreased, as we talked about, nearly 1.8 million. We already discussed that the $2.4 million reduction in the pension and the OPEB, that's offset by about a $600,000, $650,000 increase in our prepaid capacity fees. So that was what I had planned for you. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to address those at this time.
Are there any board
Yeah.
members that have questions?
So, Mike, I want to make sure I understand when you're talking about the OPEC liability and the market, in some of the losses that have been experienced in 2022. You're thinking that that's going to hit us next cycle?
Correct.
But wouldn't it be that it's kind of 2 years behind the lag time with OPEC and CalPERS actuarials and looking at that?
I don't believe so. They are, what happens is that they are working right now on information as of 6/30/22. And so they will provide that information to you so that it'll be there ready for you when you prepare your 6/30/23 audit report. It'll be 22 information. So it takes them about 8 months to pull it together. And so you're always a year behind. And so there's a measurement date and evaluation date, but my expectation is that you're going to see those big decreases in the, what happens is and I know enough to be dangerous. I'm not an actuary, but one of the calculations that goes in is there's a presumed rate of return on the investments that they're holding. And so when you look at the deferred inflows and deferred outflows, one of those, and they can switch from one to the other depending on if it's a positive or negative effect. But if the market exceeds, if the earnings that they made exceed their expected rate of return, then they're expecting that they've got more money and that's going to decrease your liability. Then in a subsequent year, if the rate of return is less than they expected, then that's going to have a drag on your liability, and it means you're going to have to come up with more money to fund it. And that's where it's kind of a rudimentary explanation of how that impacts the liability.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the lag though, in which they would use the 2022 data for our next fiscal year. I think it would be a longer lag time.
It very well could be. I believe it to be a year. Because again, they have a valuation date and a measurement date. And when that actually flows through, I'm not absolutely certain, but I believe it to be a 1 year lag. But it is entirely possible that it could be a 2 year lag.
Do the actuarials give us kind of their assumptions, or do they just give us a number and say, here it is, here's the liability?
No, there's
So we know what they're dealing with in terms of, because we all know the market went down significantly in 2022. So, I think we're expecting that there's going to be a higher OPEC liability based on that. But what I don't want to say, geez, we get next fiscal year, we get better expectations from OPEC. And it's because it's not hitting that year, it's going to hit the next year because of the lag.
Yeah, I'm just seeing the large increase that I saw this year, I was attributing to 2021. Again, hard to tell because 2020 was a very good year. And so that's why I can't say with absolute certainty exactly when it's going to flow through. But the inverse or the reverse, the market going down is going to flow through at some future point. And both of these, again, both the decrease in the liability and the potential increase in the future, you really have absolutely no control over. And that's the thing that I really don't like, is that it, the offset to this, I mean, although it's, there are, some of it sits on the balance sheet as again, both deferred inflows and deferred outflows. It impacts the recordation of increases and decreases in the liability. But for the most part, the offset of all of those runs through expense. And so at some point, it has an impact on your, again, when you look at your personnel costs, these are costs that are going through that are distorting, I think, what a reasonable cost is that you control, because they're not segregated from costs that management can actually control. And so some years they go way down and some years they go way up. And that's why for the entire time that I've been with you, I've been sarcastically telling you how much I really love this pronouncement, because I think that the idea to give you an idea of what your pension and OPEB liabilities are was a wonderful idea. But they've gone way beyond that, and they create all these deferred inflows and outflows that most people don't understand. And it does have these, and these are supposed to be with smoothing techniques. And you still, from my opinion, you still get these enormous swings in both, the liability, the deferred inflows and deferred outflows, and ultimately expense as well. And so, I just wanted to point out that there are swings that impact your expense that I didn't want you to be holding management responsible for that, because that just wouldn't be fair.
All right, thank you. That's all the question I have.
Are there any other questions from the board? Is there any questions from the public? Okay, with that, can I have a motion to accept the June 30th, 2022 audit report?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second the motion to approve the audit report for 2022.
A roll call, please.
Bordonish,
Aye.
Logan,
Aye.
Nardini is absent, Pearson. Aye. And Peterson.
Yes.
Well,
Okay,
thank
thank you,
you.
Mike. Appreciate it.
As always, it's my pleasure to be with you. Thanks so much for the opportunity. Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
And I also like to thank Natalie and Jeff, but mostly Natalie for, when are you starting next year? Is that tomorrow?
Maybe.
She was actually hoping there was going to be more people in the audience this evening so that she can at least say, yes, all this heavy lifting was for good reason and recognition.
Well, it was for
So-
good reason. I don't know about recognition, but
Well, I think
As
she does
always.
deserve the recognition because it is always be intrusive having auditors. So certainly,
thank you.
good job.
Okay, the next item is, what's the next item? Oh, the presentation and update of the district website. Who's going to do that? I thought it would be. Melissa?
So,
Gary was, but she got sick.
so
Oh, never seen her.
Here it
Natalie-
is.
Natalie gets. to
I
do
guess
that
I'm
too.
gonna, so here's the new website. Kind of losing greens. We used to have all the buttons down here
Yeah.
along the left-hand side. Now they're nice and big right here. We have the notify me button. So if people want to sign up for website updates or
Board meeting
like board meeting
agendas.
agendas. right?
Interesting. I do, if you haven't yet, I want to make sure all the board members have signed up for Notify Me, at least for the agendas, and you'll get notified, as soon as the agenda posts, you'll get an automatic notification that the agenda is online, as well as news updates. Because we're posting all of our press releases and stuff like that there, so you'll get it automatically without having to.
Yeah.
Having one of us send it to you, there as well. And then I would encourage you to, if you have neighbors or people you talk to that want more information, this is a great resource because really, all of our agendas are all posted online, and so they'll get immediate notification when something new goes on.
Do we know how many people are on Notify Me now? It used to be like 50.
That's all.
No, I thought
Yeah, we can run a
Well,
report.
listen,
I think we can run a report.
I like this because it looks a lot cleaner than
Mhm.
what was previously there.
yeah, it does.
It was just really difficult to kind of get a sense for, I mean, it was, I don't know, it was too busy.
It's nice and simple. I mean, if you just wanna
Parker
go
Red.
here for all the, that, and then you just hit up.
Yeah.
up here this. corner, it takes you back to the home page, but yeah, you got Parks and Rec, the fire department, the agenda center. One thing that I discovered today that I didn't know, so there's Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. You go to the little YouTube thing, if you're looking for all of our board meetings, those are all posted.
Oh, nice.
There. Yeah, there's a lot of them. But anyways, yeah, it's very. You can go here and pay your bill and click on there and then
Quick pay.
pay. Or if you guys want to sign, have an account or whatever, they can just do it that way.
You don't do automatic bank drafts, do you?
You do.
You do, okay.
And
And they
you
do
have-
that. You'll pay?
So
Can
they
they
can
set that
do
up?
online bill pay, they can set up to do automatic payment with their credit cards. If they're gonna do the ACH bank, they need to come in here because we have a form and we get the way to check, but we have like 750 people signed up for that.
For ACH? Okay, good.
Because it doesn't cost them anything that way.
No,
Yeah. So. But yeah,
but the credit card, if they use the credit card, we're
Right,
charging them.
right, they pay
They're
the
paying the fee.
transaction fee and the merchant fee,
Okay, because we're no longer picking that up. Yeah, okay.
so,
Okay.
yeah, it's gotta.
Sometimes some of you ask about like the wait list and those kind of things. If you go to departments and click on engineering, right there, all this document library is right here, including the water wait list, the water wait application. Those are listed there too. Will serve.
Will serve, fee schedules. Boundary maps.
Anyways, yes, it's all the same data, just organized a little different way. In our contract with Civic Plus has them do a periodic, I think it's every 5 or 6 years, we get like
Yeah,
a
'cause I think
a
this was our
refreshing,
second one.
freshen up of the website.
And what about ordinances? Where are they?
Oh. Go to government. And then scroll down to district code.
Good, yeah,
Okay, and do we have our strategic plan on there as well?
yeah,
Okay,
that's
good.
under transparency.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So the whole code's there on the left-hand side, and then the ordinances that are not yet codified are
Right there.
right there.
Okay, good.
Do we have the ability to have people sign up for committees on here yet?
We go to the homepage and go to news releases, let's see. Latest news, can see it right there, consider serving on a TCSD thing, click on that. And there's the news release, and then if you scroll down, there should be the application. Or maybe it's go back a
It
page
could
and
be in here.
Oh, it's on the-
Applications can be found.
right there.
There you go.
Okay.
And we have received one application. So far.
Let me guess, he's in the audience.
Guess. Nothing can get past him.
Okay, Gary, you have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Looks good.
Yeah.
I think it's a huge improvement.
So there's no action to be done on this. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, general manager's report.
Yeah, just a couple items. One, I just want to remind you of some upcoming holidays. It is that time of year. District offices will be closed on Friday, December 23rd for Christmas Eve, Monday, December 26th for Christmas Day. We will close at noon on Friday, December 30th for New Year's Eve. And we will be closed on Monday, all day Monday, December 1st for New Year's Day. And I'll send you a reminder on those as well.
Okay.
I sent a notice out this weekend of just things we're involved with. I did want to add something to that, and that is the Measure A committee scheduled a meeting. We once the audit information became posted, we circulated that with the Measure A Oversight Committee. And then yesterday, we determined we were able to schedule a meeting with them, and they met today, this afternoon, actually. So that committee is now working on its presentation or its report to the board regarding the use of Measure A funds. which may be ready in time for your December 20th meeting, if in fact you have one. And then finally, I wanted to note that there will be the fire department's done a Santa parade, each of the last couple of holiday seasons, and this year it will be on December 18th, the very late afternoon. More information will be forthcoming and posted online, but December 18th, it's a Sunday afternoon. I think 4:30 p.m. start time. It sounds like there's also going to be like a little event here with Santa immediately before, maybe from 3 to 4:30 or somewhere along those lines, if people want to come to the fire station. Otherwise, they'll be touring the community. Those are all the items that I have.
Are there any questions for the general manager? Public? Okay, thank you, Jeff. Committee reports. I think the only one that's in here is the TAG, Templeton Advisory, Area Advisory Group. Any questions for public? None, okay. Activity update reports, engineering report.
So we only have.
Okay, any questions? Sure. Okay.
I have a quick question, with the engineering report, I guess there was a delay in the, project for the, house, was there a delay with that?
I'm sorry, look at.
Self-help, people self-help.
Yeah,
Was there a delay?
So there's two projects that People Self-Help's working on. The one that's been under construction for like 18 months or on Peterson Ranch Road.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're behind schedule. There's not really a delay on our part, but they're not yet occupied, but I think we expect occupancy this month. The other project that People Self-Help is working on is known as Rolling Hills 3. That's off of Bennett. It's connected to the existing Rolling Hills 2. And Rolling Hills 1, and that project is still in the planning phases. There's no construction going on there yet.
This one is.
Templeton Place 2 probably.
Yeah, Templeton Place 2, utility improvement has been delayed, utility improvements completion has been delayed, so what is that?
Oh, just like the water line, sewer line, they're on-site construction.
Oh, they're all on.
Yeah, it's not our project.
Oh,
right?
okay.
But
Yeah. But
we
our
will-
stuff that we were supposed, they have.
In that case, see, they're building a water main that we will ultimately accept as a public improvement, but it's not yet ready for acceptance. So we'll bring that to you when it's completed and inspected.
I see.
Okay.
Is that on the corner of Bennett and Thomas?
It's on that project's actually on Peterson Ranch Road, about halfway between Bennett and Bethel. On the south side of the road. The other project is the Los Tablas and Bennett, or the one that's currently the People Self-Help Rolling Hills 1 and 2 is accessible from Los Tablas. Just kind of halfway between Bennett and the Mechanics Bank. Say Heather Court. Yeah, but there's a third component. They bought additional land a few years ago. That's really off of Bennett, across the creek. It actually straddles the creek. From the existing Rolling Hills 2 portion of that project. That's also People Self-Help housing project. It's just, there's been no construction commenced yet. It is a project that is entitled by the county, but they haven't completed all of their Templeton specific items yet. We have a sewer main that they need to account for and utility planning. We also have a requirement that they annex into the CFT, and that has not yet taken place, and they've not proposed an alternative to that.
So yeah, that was my next year. So as far as the CFD is concerned, I guess that's getting delayed as well.
Well, it's like a annual, in May of every year, like, so since the Templeton Hills 2 project wasn't occupied or completed by May of this year, there's no CFD assessment for it for 22-23. But in May of next year, we anticipate that it will be occupied, those buildings will be done, they should be done in this month.
Okay.
Then they would be eligible for assessment. Okay. And so that would show up to your board in July.
Okay, thank you. Are there any reports from the directors or comments?
Then here,
Okay, seeing none, I guess it's during the meeting at exactly 8 o'clock. There are a list of tentative agenda items for you to look at. I'm not sure we'll have a meeting next or the one this month, but we'll.
I'll stay in touch with you and see what can be prepared.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Jerry.